is the third and final video in the Quadrant 2 organizing series about a new to this channel functional planning technique. And in today's episode, I'm going to show you how I'll be using this technique to plan in my Happy Planner. If you haven't seen the first and second videos yet, I'll link them in the description below so you can get all caught up and then come back to this video.
Times before, and I know that we're not perfect.
We each have fundamental needs, which according to Stephen Covey, fall under 4 categories: physical, social, mental, and spiritual. By sharpening the saw, we dedicate some time to fulfilling each of these needs. And just as how sharpening a saw extends how long a saw will be effective, Covey says you help to renew your energy and to improve your productivity by spending time in the following 4 areas. Physical, like exercise, nutrition, stress management. Social or emotional, that includes service, empathy, synergy, intrinsic security. Spiritual, that includes value clarification and commitment, study and prayer. And mental, that includes things like reading or visualizing or planning, writing. We often feel like we're too busy and don't have time, but we risk burnout when we don't take the time to take care of ourselves. The authors say if we fail to build our personal capacity in these areas, we will quickly become dulled and worn out from the imbalance. To complete step number 3, come up with a goal for each of the 4 categories that you think will help renew you physically, socially, emotionally, spiritually, or mentally. And write down these 4 goals in your sidebar. Now, just as with your roles that we listed out in the last video, if you think that 4 goals in this category will overwhelm you, you may want to start with 1 sharpening the saw goal per week that addresses one of these 4 categories, and then add on later once you feel more comfortable. So after you have defined what your goals are, now you are ready to start planning out your week. The book recommends using time blocking, and then they also have this section at the bottom that they're calling other priorities. So I'm going to kind of modify this layout and make it fit for the Happy Planner. I'm going to divide the weekly spread into an hourly section, which I'm labeling as scheduled, and an unscheduled tasks section, which I'm labeling as other priorities, and I'll explain more about that later. I chose to make my hourly section span from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. since my evening routine starts at 8 p.m. each night, and I didn't feel like that needed to be written down for each day. Keep in mind that how you want to set up your scheduled section is completely up to you. Time-sensitive activities are things like appointments, meetings, and events. They do not clearly explain when to do this in the book, but I have found that for me, it works best to write down my important and time-sensitive activities first, since they are predetermined, they have fixed set times to kind of give me a framework, and then I fill in unscheduled or flexible tasks afterwards. And for me, that includes the hours that I'm at work, my morning routine, my Sunday afternoon routine, my evening routine. It also includes my dentist appointment, the game night that I'm hosting in church. And I think that we want to schedule these in first because they are important commitments that we've made with others to take place this week at specific times. So we'll need to fit in the rest of our plans around them. We also want to make sure that these scheduled items are actually important to you. For example, you could sign up for an underwater basket weaving class 6 days a week, but is that something that is actually important to you? Is that something that will help you to get closer to achieving your mission statement? Most likely not. The authors say that it's very important to spend time in Quadrant 2, like planning and working towards your goals, and that you do not want to spend all of your time in Quadrant 1. Now take a look at the sidebar where you have your Quadrant 2 role and sharpen the saw goals, and ask yourself what tasks will help you to achieve these Quadrant 2 goals this week. And then go ahead and just start adding those tasks to your week and scheduling them in on the days that make sense. So the first one is spend quality time with Andrew by going kayaking. So I've already added the kayaking and hiking trip here. Finish prepping TC room 3325 for use. I'm going to list that here under other priorities. So now I have the filming and editing videos number 1 and number 2 scheduled in. Most of this is written underneath the other priorities category, where I need to work on editing for at least 30 minutes or an hour per day. And some of it is scheduled into the actual day. So for example, I want to get the filming done in the morning of Saturday because I have a game night later in the evening and I have church the next morning and I need sunlight in order to film. And then I'm gonna move on to sharpen the saw category, workout 6 times. I'm going to schedule this in to working on it first thing after I get home from work. I'm basically making an appointment with myself. The quiet time that happens every day is part of my morning routine. I have a video where I kind of go over what my morning routine, Sunday afternoon routine, and evening routines are, and I'll link that down below if you want to find out more. Basically, when it says morning routine, that is what I'm following. For the mental category for sharpening the saw, I wrote down read. So I'm going to schedule that in to Saturday. And then we also have game night. That falls under the social emotional category. You may be wondering, when are you supposed to work on those other priority tasks? You could schedule appointments or time blocks with yourself to work on them, or you could just automatically work on them anytime you find yourself with some free time during the day. I'm personally going to be working on them as part of my morning routine. And then if I also find extra time during the day, such as during that time block after work, I'll work on them then as well. The next step is to fill in any remaining tasks that need to get done this week. And you also want to consider any preparation that's going to need to take place for the tasks that you've written down already. For example, on Wednesday, I want to prep the food for the kayaking and hiking trip. Thursday, I want to prep the house for the game night, like get out the serving dishes. Friday, I want to purchase the food for the game night. And Saturday, do the final cleaning and prep work for the game night. Step number 8 is to rank your other priority section into which quadrant they fall into. So let's start with this as an example. Prepare her-to presentation part 1. So this is a quadrant 2 goal. And it's a quadrant 2 goal because it is not urgent, but it is important because it helps me to move closer towards achieving my mission statement. For the tasks written in the other priority section for each day, we can use a ranking system like the ABC method, where A is the highest priority, followed by B, then C, and so on. And each letter can also be subdivided by number based on priority for that day. You want to work on completing these tasks one by one in their order of ranking. And this ranking step is optional, but the authors do at least want you to highlight, circle, or mark with an asterisk your most important priority if you choose to not rank each task. And of course, if a task does not get completed that day, it needs to be migrated to a future day. The last step is evaluate. At the beginning of your next Quadrant 2 organizing session, you'll want to review your mission statement and then ask yourself these questions. What goals did I achieve? What challenges did I encounter? What decisions did I make? And in making decisions, did I keep first things first? And this is, of course, the point where I would migrate anything that didn't get completed from this week into the next week so that nothing gets left behind. Remember that unexpected things will happen and priorities are going to have to change. So it's important to be willing to reassess how you've prioritized your tasks. The authors strongly recommend to not overschedule yourself by trying to plan everything down to the minute. Try to leave some blank space on each day in case tasks have to get rescheduled or if things just take longer than you expected them to. You can always pull from a future date's tasks if you do end up running out of things to do. So this is my Quadrant 2 organizing spread. I have my Quadrant 2 goals listed on the side and my Sharpen the Saw activities. I've broken this up into scheduled, hourly items at the top and my other priorities at the bottom. And I really like how there isn't a ton of writing on here. It's easy for me to tell when I have an appointment or an event scheduled, and I don't feel overwhelmed by looking at this spread. So I hope that this video gave you some ideas for planning out your week and how you set up your spreads and prioritize items in your to-do list. I would recommend getting this book, First Things First, if you want to learn more about this. There's so much that I didn't have the time to cover, so definitely check this book out if you want to learn more, and I'll see you next Saturday. Bye.
Could somebody wake me up? I don't wanna be here and let the world pass me by. Yeah, I just see her face wherever I look. She's standing